Welcome to Tea with Marie. Good tea this morning. I'm Marie Younkin-Waldman, and here we are in the historic Casey Farm in Saunderstown, Rhode Island. And we're going to have a wonderful time today. Yep. My guest sitting next to me is George Christie, who is the program coordinator for the farm, a lot of the educational programs.
Yes.
Right, George?
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking with George a little bit. We're sitting in the historic house built in 17-something?
This house was actually built around 1750. There was a house here before which has disappeared. The farm was actually started in 1703 by the Maori family that came over from the Newport area.
And that's what they did in those days. The Newport, they came over and had these were so-called Yankee plantations, weren't they?
Exactly. And the Newport, the Quidnick Island, the original Rhode Island, was settled first compared to South County because it was an island and it was more easily defended against Native American attacks, and also it was easier to protect one's cattle against things like wolves when you were on an island setting. So Quidnick Island was settled quite early.
And that was Rhode Island at one point, wasn't
yes,
it?
Yes,
Hell.
very much so.
But then they probably needed more land.
They needed more land, and the Boston Neck area, which we're a part of, was good land for raising cattle, horses, and pigs. You may have heard of the Narragansett Pacer horse, which was
The Narragansett pigs.
A pacer horse.
Sorry.
That was popular for
the
use.
pacer, yes, I heard of that. Those are the small horses.
Yep, and it was a good horse. It was popular in the Caribbean islands, so it was raised here and then sold.
So that was part of the molasses trade?
Yes.
So this was really a very historic area as well as place.
Yes.
Because when people think of plantations, they tend to think of the South.
Yes, and the word plantation at that point really meant a large farm that was farmed not only by the farm family, but by hired or indentured servant help as well. So plantation simply meant the farm was large enough that you needed additional help above and beyond the family.
Okay, and so the people who owned them were called planters.
Yes.
And so we have, this Casey farm is about how big?
It's approximately 300 acres in size, which is essentially the same as the original size. Excuse me. And it does run from Narragansett Bay, excuse me, over to the Narrow River. It's long and thin, so that it had frontage on both the river and the bay.
And it's one of the oldest, still continually acting as a farm in Rhode Island.
Yes, and it's the only one along the Boston Neck area that's where the land has stayed in one parcel since the early 1700s. It's beautiful,
and I feel so privileged to live near here. I live about 5 minutes away from here, and I've been driving by this farm for years, brought my grandchildren here and so on. So today we're talking a little bit with George about the history and the educational programs. Then we're going to move over and talk with the manager of the farm named Mike, who's going to show us a little bit about the animals. And then we'll move to the barn and see about some of the programs coming up. So George, tell us a little bit about the history of the families that lived here. There was the Maori family and then the Coggeshall family. These are all Rhode Island old names.
Yes, a Maori married a Coggeshall, and or a Coggeshall married a Maori, I guess I should say.
Right.
And their daughter Abigail, who's behind us here, married Silas Casey, who's also behind us here. He was actually an East Greenwich family, from an East Greenwich family, and they came to the farm, and the farm was given to them by Abigail's parents. And of course, in those days, gifts like that came to the family became the property of the man. So at that point, it became Casey Farm. And that was in the 1760s, early 1770s, so right before the American Revolution. And the Caseys, after the Revolution, again, from the painting, you can see that there's a little ship in the painting that shows that Silas Casey was a merchant. And in that, he lost several ships in a row during the late 1700s. And we was kind of on a downtrend for a while. So they actually lived at the farm for a number of years. They were the only Caseys who ever really lived at the farm. The rest of the time they had tenant farmers here, and they used it as sort of a summer home. And perhaps our most famous Casey is Brigadier General Thomas Lincoln Casey Jr. They're the great-grandson of Silas and Abigail. And he was chief of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, again, after the Civil War, and was noted for designing the Library of Congress building. And he was the one, if you ever go to see the Washington Monument, it's kind of interesting. You go about a third of the way up, and you notice that it changes color. Well, what happened with the Washington Monument, it was that they started to build it, and then they realized it was too heavy. The foundation wasn't going to hold it, so they stopped building it, and it sat that way for a long, long time. And then he came in and redesigned it. They dug out around the foundation. He redesigned the foundation, strengthened it, and then that allowed it to be built up to its final size. The problem was, by the time they started rebuilding, they couldn't get the same stone. So that's why, again, if you go and look at the Washington Monument, it changes color about a third of the way up. But
where did he learn how to be an engineer?
He went to West Point.
He went to West Point, okay.
As did many of the Casey family members. It's rather interesting. The Cogshells were Quakers, and as were the Maoris. And they married.
So many Quakers first came to Newport and were very prosperous, and they were thought of differently from the way we think of Quakers today, because they were prosperous before the Revolution, right?
Exactly. They did quite well. And then they married the Casey family, which then had at least one member, in either the colonial or the American military for a period of about 150 years. So there's a little irony there that this Quaker family should marry into this.
Because I thought I had read about the Quakers that during the Revolution, that's when they started becoming more peace-loving, because they didn't want to go fighting in the Revolution or whatever.
To a certain extent, though, we know that the Quaker principles espoused pacifism earlier, but the Revolution really was a time period when they were expected. They really had
Maybe
to ask themselves.
Maybe they didn't really completely believe in what was happening.
I think it was as much a case they were becoming stronger in saying we really are pacifists during that time period.
And I know they initiated some anti-slavery legislation initially too, or at least they had that interest.
Very much so. Yeah, the Quakers were strongly...
Way before the actual legislation took place here in Rhode Island.
Yes.
So they really were quite important in the beginnings of history here in Rhode Island.
Very much so.
Yeah. And the Sephardic Jews, but we won't keep digressing. Marie read a little bit about Rhode Island history once upon a time. Anyway, that gentleman looks very impressive. And so we have, the farm has beautiful stone walls all over it, and you bring children, you bring classes, and you have an actual curriculum. So tell us a little bit about how that works, because I noticed some things pertain to history or social studies or even math for the different age levels in your curriculum.
Yes, and I wanted to just get back to Thomas Lincoln Casey for a second, because he was the person, the property had been distributed over aunts and uncles and cousins. There were any number of owners. I think maybe 8 or more owners. And he said, I want this farm to stay as a single property. And he purchased back and he made trades to get all the property back into one piece, which now allows us today to both have the organic farm that Mike will talk a lot about and the educational programs. We have, in the educational programs, we do school programs, both in the spring and the fall. We don't do them in midwinter because we're frozen out.
Not like the winter.
And we also have a summer camp that we do in the summer.
And it's all filled up, I guess.
Summer camp is all full for this year.
I'll have to wait till next year.
The programs, as you said, we blend history and agriculture. So we're a very popular program that we do is called Project Chick, where we actually take incubators, which are styrofoam boxes with a heating element in them. We take those to schools, and the children hatch out the baby chicks that then come back to the farm for our flock. And the history that we incorporate into that is we have a chicken known as the Dominique chicken. Chickens have breeds, just like you have Dalmatians and Golden Retrievers and Labradors. Chickens have breeds. And the Dominique chicken is a black and white barred chicken that would have been very common in the day of Abigail and Silas Casey. But today it's not very common because it doesn't lay as many eggs. It's not as, it's not a industrial chicken, as it were. But what we do is we preserve that, what's known as a rare breed chicken here.
And you must have the Rhode Island Reds.
We do have Rhode Island Red chickens, which were developed over in East Bay area in the 1800s. We also have Narragansett turkeys, which were a cross between...
We're going to see those in a few minutes. Narragansett turkeys. I thought that was great.
And they're quite pretty. They're a cross between the wild turkey of this area and turkeys that were taken from Central America over to England and then came back over in the 1600s.
We do get a lot of wild turkeys in this area too.
We do now. They were essentially gone up and through the 1970s, and I'm not exactly sure when they started reintroducing. But this is a modern thing, these new turkeys around here that have been reintroduced. And yes, we have wild turkeys. In fact, we have one wild turkey, Tom, a male, who is coming up to the... he's checking out our ladies, in the turkey coop.
The other day when I was here, the turkeys were on display, so we're going to be able to see that too.
Yes.
And so anything else that you want to mention about the history or the educational programs quickly?
Well, I think just that we do a variety of different educational programs. We also have one that's very popular. Children in the second grades do a simple machines program, and we have a program where they come to the farm and they'll pull a hay bale up into the loft and work with levers getting rocks out of the ground. One of the things I find the children, it's interesting, they look at these rocks and they don't really know where they came from. And as I point out, they came from... one of the first things you have to do when you want to farm in Rhode Island is get out of the rocks.
Yeah, you have to deal with the rocks. Well, now we're going to move over and see Mike and see some of the animals. So if somebody wants to get in touch with the Casey Farm, do you have the website or the email?
To find out about the farm, it would be www.historicnewengland, all one word, .org.
Okay. And then we'll put that on now, and then we'll probably put that on at the end of the show.
Right.
Okay, thanks, George. It's
My
been
pleasure.
Great talking to you. Now we're in the cemetery at Casey Farm with Mike. And Mike, I never got your last name.
Mike Hutchison. I'm the farm manager with my wife, Polly. My family and I live here on the farm and run the farm and the vegetable program and everything else. So.
You've been doing that for how long?
13 years.
Wow, you must be really good at it, right?
Well, we figured a few things out along the way. We made many mistakes, too, but it works out.
Yeah, you've done a great job. And you used to be in the educational field, so you really know a lot about getting those educational programs going.
Right. My background's in education, but I like being outside and working with my hands. And
it just works great for you all around, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in the cemetery right now, and behind us is the tomb of the general that we spoke about earlier.
Right. Thomas Lincoln Casey is here, as well as the rest of the Casey family is buried here as well. It's a beautiful spot for a small little family cemetery, and actually Thomas Lincoln had some of the other family's members moved here when he set the farm back up.
So he was the one that kind of got all the pieces back together on the farm, so it now could be an organic farm and we can enjoy it.
Right, it's great. And it's his son, Edward Pierce, was the one who donated it to what was then SPNEA, which is now Historic New England. So there's 300 acres here.
Could you define that acronym, please, for everybody?
I'm sorry. The Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. We just changed our name last year to Historic New England, trying to
it's
simplify.
A long one.
Yeah, trying to simplify so the 300 acres is currently owned and managed by them, and we're employees of Historic New England.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you find Maurice and Coggeshall's in here too, as George mentioned earlier?
Not so much. Maybe a couple of Coggeshalls. There's a couple of unmarked stones as well, but no, this was after their time.
Now, would you also find Quaker stones which wouldn't have many markings on them because they were very plain, right?
There's some nice old Newport carved stones back there that are nicely done. Newport was really famous for their stone carving, still is.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Okay, well, this is great. We're going to move on and see some more of the animals now in a few minutes, and the wonderful Narragansett turkey.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, that was very. I'd never even seen the turkeys do it. The chickens I've seen all the time, but the turkeys, they're very secretive about what they do. So we have 4 Narragansett hens and 2 toms, and we're in full mating season, as you just saw, with the males fluffing out their feathers and attracting the females. But one of the hens just laid a freshly laid egg. It's still warm, and it's got a little bit of dirt on it because there's always a little bit of moisture, and that collects the dirt a little bit. But we've been collecting these eggs, and we're going to incubate them, and we'll hatch out our own batch of eggs out of the incubator, and then we'll have turkeys for sale for Thanksgiving, we're hoping. It worked out last year, and we're trying to do it again. So, thanks.
We're now in a greenhouse at Casey Farm with Mike, and you're going to talk a little bit about these are some of the plants that you start right here that you end up putting in the field.
Right, we grow all our own seedlings for our farm operation, vegetables, herbs, and flowers. And then we also grow some for sale, which we'll talk about later down in the barn about our seedling sale, which is Mother's Day. And this greenhouse is heated with a furnace.
Feels good because it's sort of chilly today.
And all sorts of things are growing here. It's a great spot. It's a nice sunny day. And the crew is busy potting up tomatoes this second week of April.
Right. Are we a little behind this year because of the cold winter?
No, we're doing pretty well. You gotta keep the calendar going in here, no matter what's happening outside.
Right, obviously in the greenhouse. But now let's move over here and take a look at some of the things that Paula's planning out. Paula, what are you exactly?
I'm the other farm manager here, Mike's lesser half, as it were.
You're married to Mike?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was hoping we'd have you on the show. We got you, Paula.
That's it. Yeah, Polly. Yep.
Okay. What have you got going here?
This is some Mexican sunflowers, also known as Tithonia. But mainly our big event this week in the greenhouse is we have 36 different varieties of tomatoes that we then have seeded, and now we're transferring them over into the containers for the plant sale and for the farm.
Now, sunflowers, what function do they have?
Cutting. That's what the people who sign up for a season worth of vegetables can cut some flowers here. Also, they enhance the beauty of the farm for the regular visitors.
But do the birds like them, or do they do something?
These are actually a Mexican sunflower, so they are not so much the seed crop.
So it's more just for beauty and that kind of thing.
Bouquets.
Great. Okay, that's wonderful. Anything else? What's over here?
Well, this greenhouse is our heated greenhouse, as Mike said. So what you see in here is mostly very small because it's going to be put out after the frost. So we don't want to start it too early, otherwise they're overgrown and unhealthy. And we grow everything for sort of the maximum health right around the last frost date in mid-May.
Now it's mid-April, so you're going to be putting them out in mid-May, is that what you said?
About a month.
Okay. And this is when your helpers come in as part of the program, and they work with that too?
Absolutely. Yep, we've had a couple here today, and we'll have more and more as the weeks progress.
Great.
So what's around us now, you'd recognize eggplants, peppers, zinnias, other flowers, lots and lots of basil. We have 40 trays of basil available for sale, and some of the flowers that are more tender as well.
Where do you get the seeds for these plants originally?
We grow some of them out here ourselves and save our own seed, but we also buy seed from all over the country, Maine to California.
Great. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. I'm glad we got you involved. Mike should set it all for you.
She did. She usually does.
Great. Okay.
No,
Anything
we're a great
else
team.
that you want to say about the greenhouse?
Nope. This is Polly's realm. We work the farm together, and she manages the whole greenhouse operation. So I'm glad we got to come for a visit.
Good. Okay, then we're going to be moving on to the next thing. We'll see what.
Maybe the chickens.
Maybe the chickens. Okay, let's go see the chickens. Now we're out here looking at the chickens here at Casey Farm. Mike, what's unusual about these chickens?
These are Dominique chickens. These are America's first breed of chicken. This is an heirloom breed, and we're trying to keep the breed alive, as George mentioned earlier. And to do this, we have our chicken coop, which we call the Chicken-A-Go-Go. It's a mobile chicken coop, and they move around and have access to fresh pasture all summer long. And they're very inquisitive birds, and they're the ones that are going out to the school programs as well.
Is this one of the few places in the country where where you're breeding this type of bird?
There's a few other places, but we're hoping there's going to be more places. That's the goal, is to try and encourage other people to take these birds back into production.
Okay, and they're kind of pretty. They've got white and black stripes, and
they're the predecessor to what's currently thought of as the Plymouth Barred Rock chicken.
Oh, great. And I guess they're making a lot of noise here. I can't hear them, but I assume they're making noise.
Yeah, they are. And behind us is Boston Neck Road. That's that's where the farm is located. And that wasn't always there. That road came through back in the 1920s. The original entrance to the farm is on the other side of the house, and the old Boston Neck Road was currently all grown up into woods. But
and that was the original lane of the farm,
right?
Coming from the middle of the woods, where I guess the old
Right.
Boston Neck Road was right in the middle of the woods, huh?
That was the way to Boston. It was a long way to Boston back then. That's why they usually went on by water. Water was the best form of transportation back then.
And you can see the water in the back here a little bit too. And I know you have some programs and summer camps and things that are involved with the water.
Right, we make use of the bay. They go down and they bring big nets and seine and look for fish and whatever else is growing down there. Hermit crabs primarily.
Wow, that's great. This is a wonderful farm. We're going to move into the barn now. We're going to say goodbye to you all and tell about some of the events that are coming up so you can come down here and visit the farm yourselves.
Great.
Mike, this is something unusual over here.
Yeah, this is our egg sales table. It's an honor box, and I've had people come up from New York City and say, "See, I told you." They bring their friends and they show them the honor box as an unusual form of marketing. But keep a few dollars in there, and that's how we sell our eggs. We usually it's Tuesday and Fridays here at the farm where we sell our fresh eggs.
Tuesdays and Fridays. Now they're organic, free range. I know I bought some last week, and we had them over the weekend, and they were delicious.
Aren't they good? Yeah, the chickens have a healthy life, and the eggs and yolks are nice and yellow.
And this barn that we're standing in front of, very low ceiling and so forth, this is where, what do you do in here?
This is the old calf barn when this was a dairy farm, and that's why it's kind of a low ceiling. But now we use it for our CSA program, our Community Supported Agriculture Program. People buy a share in the farm and come out once a week and get fresh vegetables, and then they lend a hand for different work projects a few hours during the summer. And we have about 200 families that do that with us each year. It's a great program.
That's very popular. I guess it's all filled up at the moment, right?
It is, unfortunately, but there's some other farms around that are doing it. There's about 4 other farms in Rhode Island that do it that way. And
how would one find out about that?
There is a website. I think if you Google CSA, I think you can do that way.
And Watson Farm, maybe in Jamestown, that kind of thing?
They grow meat. They do a different marketing for their meat. Yes.
Okay, speaking of meat, you're going to be having farmers markets here this summer, and they will be a part of that, right?
Right. Watson Farm and the Village Hearth Bakery and Magic Coffee and 2 or 3 other vegetable growers are going to be doing a farmers market here on Saturday mornings from 9 to 12 each Saturday, starting May 21st. We're really excited about it.
Oh, yeah, I would be. I would coming every day because I just live 5 minutes away from here. I can't wait to come.
Well, since our vegetable CSA program always fills up, this is another way we could sell vegetables to folks in the neighborhood and not exclude anybody kind of thing.
And the plants that we saw in the greenhouse will soon be sold on the weekend of May 7th.
Right, Mother's Day weekend, the 7th and 8th this year. It's a little early. It's going to be a little chilly for those little tender tomato plants, but Mother's Day weekend...
Tomatoes will be out by then? Oh, the plants. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. No, but Mother's Day weekend is our traditional weekend, and it's Saturday and
that's
Sunday.
where you get the plants that you take home and put in your own garden.
Exactly. And a lot of them are organically grown, and there's children activities and other things going on as well.
And that's going to be all weekend.
Yeah, Saturday and
So
Sunday.
we're airing this show on Friday, so that will be like tomorrow and the next day. Come on down to Casey Farm and see what's happening, get those plants. And is the farmer's market going to be then too?
No, the farmers market is May 21st, a couple weeks late. We needed a couple weeks to catch our breath.
Okay, right. And you can bring your kids down and see the animals and see these fantastic turkeys and very special chickens and the horses, which we haven't had time to look at today, but there are horses here at the farm also.
Right, we're open for tours starting in June from 11 to 5 on Saturdays. So if you want to just bring your family down and come for a visit, please feel free.
And you have camps that I know are filled up for this summer, but if you're thinking of next summer, what a wonderful place for young children to learn about animals and participate in farming.
They have a good time. We work them hard.
Work them hard, right? And I'm sure they love every minute. Mike, thank you so much for showing us around this historic Casey farm, which is certainly unique in Rhode Island and in the country.
Thank you for coming.
And I also want to thank all of you who've watched us here today on Tea with Marie. And this has been certainly an example of beauty and gentility, Casey Farm, something that started 300 years ago and still goes on. So I'm Marie Younkin-Waldman saying goodbye for now. Remember, keep beauty in your lives every single day.